Welcome to Job Bridges Japanese Language Training Center. We provide an online tutorial for people who aspires to work in Japan. Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to keep you updated on our lessons to help you master Japanese language in no time. Konnichiwa! Hello! Welcome back to Job Bridges Japanese Language video tutorial. In this video, we'll be discussing about Lesson 18. And Lesson 18 will be discussing about the verb dictionary forms. So what are the verb dictionary forms? These are the forms of the verb or the usual forms of the verb that you can find in the dictionary. That's why it's called, of course, verb dictionary form. Okay, so let's start. So verb dictionary form. This form is the basic form of a verb. Verbs are given in this form in the dictionary, hence the name. So how do we make the dictionary form of a verb? So remember that the verbs, again, as I've said before, are divided into three groups. So I hope by now you remember or you can distinguish which verbs belong to group 1, 2, and 3. So how do we transform group 1 verbs into their verb dictionary form? So in the verbs of this group, the last sound of the mass form is always again the sound in the E line, remember? And for you to change it into their verb dictionary form, replace it with the sound in the U line to make the dictionary form. Again, the last sound before the mass, which is the E line, you have to transform or change those into the U line. What are the letters under the U line? We have the ku, tu, su, mu, nu, ru, and so on. So here are the examples. So we have kakimasu. Again, kakimasu. So the sound before the mass is the ki. And then to make it or to change it into their verb dictionary form, change the ki into its U line or the U counterpart, which is ku. So kakimasu will become kaku. Again, kaku. Easy, isn't it? You don't have to add anything after transforming the E line into U line. So kakimasu again will become kaku. Now next verb example, we have yomimasu, to read. So to transform yomimasu into the verb dictionary form, you just have to drop the mas, then change mi into its U counterpart, which is mu. So yomimasu will become yomu. Again, yomu. Now next, torimasu, to take. So drop the mas, change ri to its U counterpart, which is ru. So torimasu will become toru. Again, toru. Next, suimasu, to smoke. Drop the mas, change i to u. So su. Again, su, to smoke. Now next, isogimasu, to hurry. What is the verb dictionary form of isogimasu? It's isogu. Again, isogu. So how did it become isogimasu? We drop the mas, change the gi into its U line counterpart, which is gu. So isogimasu will become isogu. Next, asobimasu, to enjoy oneself, to play, and so on. So drop the mas, change the b into its U line counterpart, which is bu. So asobimasu will become asobu. Again, asobu. Now next, machimasu, to wait. So we have to drop the mas. So what is the U line or the U counterpart of chi? It's tsu. Okay, so machimasu will become matsu. And then lastly, hanashimasu, its verb dictionary form is hanasu. Drop the last or drop the mas. Change shi into its u line, which is su. So hanashimasu will become hanasu. Wakarimashita? Now let's move on to group 2. Now again, in group 2, changing it into verb dictionary form is again very easy. So you just add ru to its mas form. So you just have to drop the mas, then add ru. For example, tabemas will become taberu. Mimas, to see, will become miru. Then what are the other examples that we have? To show, misemas will become miseru. To be enough, tarimas becomes tariru. To live, ikimas, it will become ikiru. And same goes for all verbs under the group 2. Now guys, the verb dictionary form will be sometimes called the verb in the ru form. Okay? Mostly because of the group 2 verbs and from the group 3 wherein all verbs usually ends in ru. So don't get confused whenever you heard or someone ask you what is the ru form of the verb, because it's just the same as the dictionary form. They are just the same, or they're just practically the same. All right. So next, let's go to group 3. So how do we change group 3 verbs into their ru form? So shimas becomes suru, and then for kimas, which is a special verb, it is automatically kuru. Example, benkyo shimasu. So we change shimas into suru, so benkyo shimasu will become benkyo suru. Then shimasu, which is to do, will become automatically suru. Then again, kimas is kuru. Now what are the other verbs under group 3? We have araimasu. No, I'm so sorry about that. Sentaku shimasu, to do laundry. Sentaku suru, to clean a house or to clean. Soji shimasu, it will become soji suru. And then if you want to play tennis, tenisu shimasu, it will become tenis suru. And so on. Wakarimashita? Now let's move on into using the verb dictionary form into sentences. The first sentence pattern that uses the dictionary form of the verb is the noun or the verb dictionary form koto ga dekimasu. Again, noun or the verb dictionary form koto ga dekimasu, which literally translates into can. Alright, it means can. So dekimasu is the verb which expresses ability or possibility. A noun in the verb dictionary form koto ga dekimasu indicates the content of ability or possibility. So let's discuss first using the noun koto ga dekimasu. Nouns placed before ga are mostly nouns which expresses actions, such as driving a car, shopping, skiing, dancing, and so on. Nouns such as nihongo, which is associated with the action hanasu, or piano, which is associated with the action hiku, can also be used here. Let's take a look at our example. Mira-san wa nihongo ga dekimasu. Again, Mira-san wa nihongo ga dekimasu. Or Mr. Miller can speak Japanese. Note how we use the noun koto ga dekimasu in this sentence. Instead of saying that Mira-san wa nihongo wo hanasu koto ga dekimasu, it is easier to say Mira-san wa nihongo ga dekimasu, which also means Mr. Miller can speak Japanese. Right? It's easier to say Mira-san wa nihongo ga dekimasu than Mira-san wa nihongo wo hanasu ga dekimasu, which means just the same as Mr. Miller can speak Japanese. Wakatta? Now, here's another example of noun koto ga dekimasu. Yuki ga taksan furimashita kara kotoshi wa suki ga dekimasu. Again, 雪がたくさん降りましたから今年はスキーができます。It snowed a lot, so we can ski this year. So note how we use the スキーができます as a possibility or an ability to do this year. Instead of using スキーすることができます which means the same to ski, it is easier to say スキーができます. See how we can use a noun into expressing it as an ability or as a possibility. Now let's move on into using verb dictionary form ことができます. So when a verb is used to describe ability or possibility, こと should be attached to the dictionary form of the verb to make it a nominalized phrase and then add ができます after that. Okay? Use こと attached to the dictionary form and then add ができます. Example, ミラさんは漢字を読むことができます. Again, ミラさんは漢字を読むことができます. So Mr. Miller can read kanji. Note how we describe in this sentence that Mr. Miller can read kanji by using 漢字を読むことができます. 読みます in its dictionary form is 読む and then adding ことができます which expresses the ability to read. And then of course, the object of the verb read is kanji. Okay, next example. カードで払うことができます. Again, カードで払うことができます. Or you can pay by credit card. Now, in this one, we use 払います or to pay in its verb dictionary form or its in rule form as 払う. Then adding ことができます as an ability or a possibility that you can pay using credit card. わかりました? So what are the other things or other examples or verbs or sentences that we can use or we can express using this sentence pattern? How about you can eat Japanese cuisine? So it's 日本料理が食べる or 日本料理を食べることができます. Right? Can eat. Right? What else? What else can you think of an example which expresses your ability? How about you can speak English language? So we have there 英語できます, right? Since it's a noun, we just have to use noun できます. Noun ができます. 英語ができます. Okay, what else? Using the action. How about see? Okay, can see a movie. 映画を見ることができます. And so on. Now, how about if you want to talk about or to tell someone about your hobby or your interest? So, if you want to express your hobby or interest, we use the sentence pattern 私の趣味は noun or verb, whichever is your hobby or interest. Verb in a dictionary form ことです. Again, 私の趣味は noun or its verb or the verb in the dictionary form ことです, which means my hobby or interest. 趣味 being hobby or interest in English. So the verb dictionary form こと can express the content of hobbies more concretely than the noun alone can do. Example, 私の趣味は音楽です. 私の趣味は音楽です. This sentence pattern is 私の趣味は noun です. Or in English, my hobby is music. Note that when you say watashi no shumi wa ongaku desu or my hobby is music, it's very vague, right? What do you mean your hobby is music? You mean you play music, you listen to music, or you compose music? Or maybe you produce a music. So, it's kind of vague. That's why the verb dictionary form plus the koto expresses a more concrete hobby. Next example. Watashi no shumi wa ongaku wo kiku koto desu. Again, watashi no shumi wa ongaku wo kiku koto desu. See that in the second example, we use the watashi no shumi wa object and then of course the verb dictionary form koto desu, which means my hobby is listening to music or my hobby is listening to the music. See how this one is more concrete or expresses a more concrete hobby, right? So you like or your hobby is listening to music. So if you want to express your hobby, okay, we suggest that you use the verb dictionary form koto desu because it is more clear and more precise or exact. So how about if you want to ask someone what is their hobby? Of course, if you've expressed yours, it is very polite to ask in return what is the hobby of your listener. So if you want to ask them their hobby or their interest, we use go趣味は何ですか? Again, go趣味は何ですか? So what are the other hobbies that we could have? You know, hon o watashi no, for example, my hobby is watashi no shumi wa hon o yomu koto desu. And my other hobby would be watashi no shumi wa ryori o tsukuru koto desu. Now what are my hobbies? Now let's talk about verb dictionary. Verb 1, dictionary form, ma-any, verb 2. Or if it's a noun no ma-any, verb 2. And if it's a quantifier period ma-any, verb 2. So basically, this is a three sentence pattern. It depends if you're gonna use the verb 1, the noun, or the quantifier. Then ma-any, verb 2. So let's discuss about using the verb in its dictionary form. So in the verb 1 dictionary form ma-any, verb 2, this sentence pattern indicates that the action of verb 2 occurs before the action of verb 1 takes place. Again, verb 2 occurs before verb 1. Okay? Even when the tense verb 2 is in the past tense or the future tense, verb 1 is always in the dictionary form. Remember that. Okay? Verb 2 occurs before action of verb 1, and then verb 2, even if it's in the past tense or in the future tense, verb 1 will always be in the dictionary form. So example, Nihon e kuru mae ni Nihongo wo benkyou shimashita. Again, Nihon e kuru mae ni Nihongo wo benkyou shimashita. Or I studied Japanese before I came to Japan. So in this one, our verb 1 is kuru, which is to come, mae-ni, then Nihongo, benkyou shimashita. Our verb 2 here is the benkyou shimasu. Remember, verb 1 will always be in the ru form, even if the verb 2 is in the past or in the present. Noting that, okay, verb 2 has to happen first before verb 1. So in this sentence, he said that before he came to Japan, he studied Japanese language. Wakatta? Now another example. Nerumae ni hon o yomimasu. Again, nerumae ni hon o yomimasu. I read a book before I go to bed. So our verb 1 here, or the verb 1 dictionary form, is the neru or to sleep, mae ni. And then of course, the verb 2 is the yomimasu. Noting that he or before he or she sleeps or before the speaker sleeps, okay, he reads a book. So, I guess by now you already know that maeni means before. That is why the verb to always takes place before your verb 1. And remember, whatever the tense of your verb 2 is, verb 1 will always be in the rule form or the dictionary form. Remember that. So this sentence pattern is used when you're stating that you're doing something before you do another verb. Wakata. Now, how about using the noun no, maeni? So in noun, when maeni comes after a noun, the particle no is put between the noun and maeni. Nouns before maeni are nouns which express actions or nouns which imply actions. Example, Shokuji no maeni te o araimasu. Again, Shokuji no maeni te o araimasu, or I wash my hands before eating. So the use of our noun here, which is shokuji, is same as the actions that implies, nouns that implies actions. Which means before he or she eats or before a meal, the speaker washes his or her hand. Again, this is an action being done before the noun, right? Because again, maeni means before. So before eating, the speaker washes his or his hands. Shokuji no maeni te o araimasu. I wash my hands before eating. Now, how about in quantifier period? How do we use the maeni? When maeni comes after a quantifier, which is a period, the particle no is not necessarily needed. Example, Tanaka-san wa ichijikan maeni dekakemashita. Again, Tanaka-san wa ichijikan maeni dekakemashita. Or in English, Mr. Tanaka left an hour ago. In here, he said that an hour has already passed, okay, when Mr. Tanaka left. Ichijikan maeni. An hour before, okay, he already left. Wakarimashita minasan? Wakatta ne. Now, let's discuss the word nakanaka. When nakanaka is accompanied by a negative expression, it means not easily or not as expected. Typically, this expresses a surprise and unexpected about something that you have thought is not, good. Example, Nihon de wa nakanaka uma o miru koto ga dekimasen. Again, Nihon de wa nakanaka uma o miru koto ga dekimasen. Or in Japan, we can rarely see horses. So remember, it means not easily or not as expected, and it is always used with the negative expression. So in this one, we use it with dekimasen. So remember or take note that wa of Nihon de wa is attached to de just to show the emphasize the location or area under the discussion. So don't worry, we'll be discussing this in, I believe, somewhere around lesson 26 or 27, if I'm not mistaken. Now, zehi. Zehi is used with expressions of hope and requests such as hoshides, V mas taides or V mas form in their taides and V te form kudasai, and emphasizes the meaning of the expression. So since it is expressing or expression of hope and request, we use it again with hoshi, wanting, verb tai form or verb taides, wanting to do something, and since again it's a request, it can also be used with verb te form kudasai. Example, Zehi Hokkaido e ikitai desu. Again, Zehi Hokkaido e ikitai desu, or I want to go to Hokkaido very much. See, expressing a hope or a want. That's why we use the verb taides or want to go. Now, next example, ぜひ遊びに来てください. Again, ぜひ遊びに来てください. Or please come to my place. And this one, you are requesting someone. So if you've noticed, yes, ぜひ means certainly or without fail. So like in the first example, it's like saying I certainly want to go to Hokkaido. And in the second example, it's like saying na without any failure, you must come to my place. Wakarimashita? Alright, that's just it for today. See you on our next videos. And don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel to keep you updated on our lessons so you can master Japanese language in no time.